Hello everyone, welcome to this week's Gran Turismo 7 Daily Race C Race and Strategy Guide. We're off to the Nurburgring GP Course in Group 3 machinery once again. We did this race around about 6 months ago, but at that point it was a bit of a fuel saver. It was just the medium tyres that were available, and it was a no stopper with like fairly high tyre wear and a little bit of fuel saving required. Slightly different settings this time. It's still 10 laps. We have the tyre wear at times 7, fuel at times 3, medium and hard tyres are both in play. Both of them are mandatory, so a pit stop will be required. BOP is on, damage is light, it's a formation start, and slipstream is real. So always a quite popular combination, Group 3 at the Nurburgring, and especially more popular given that there's going to be a little bit of strategy in there. So pretty good week ahead. Race A and Race B also looking fairly promising for this week's dailies. But let's move on with how I see this one unfolding, and first up we're going to talk about the car, because the test car for this one is going to be the Nissan GTR 2013. Pretty much the dominant force in Group 3 at the moment in Gran Turismo 7. However, we will look at some other cars a little bit later on in the video, because I'm not sure this is going to be the car for this week's Daily Race C. There is another car out there that I think is going to be faster than the GTR, albeit a little bit more tricky to drive, but we will take a look at that in due course. So let's move on to taking a look at the individual elements to the race, and then we'll formulate the strategy from that point. First up, we've got the hard tyres, and what we're going to do here, we're going to set a little bit of a benchmark on the hard tyre just to get a rough idea of what kind of lap time we can do. We never set a particularly good lap time, but we can look at the optimal lap of 157.6. Let's just say our benchmark lap is going to be a couple of times quicker than that, because if we start in the mediums, we've burned off a bit of fuel, the hard tyres will be a little bit quicker than we have the full fuel. So we'll call our benchmark a 157.3. So as we move on to the medium tyres here, let's see at what point we kind of cross over in terms of performance on the medium tyres to that hard tyre lap. And as we join our car here, we're coming into the final chicane, one corner to go after that. We are on lap 7. You can see on lap 6 we did a 157.0, so well under that crossover lap as far as I'm concerned. Lap 5 was a bit of a bad one, and prior to that we were in the 56. Not quite putting a lap together, giving it the optimal as a 55.9, but 55.7 there on lap 7, so pretty much getting to that crossover point. So as far as I can sort of work out, that kind of crossover lap, if you start in the mediums and move on to the hard tyres, is going to be lap 6 or 7, depending if you're on the pad or on the wheel, and depending on your driving style. So that would be kind of the optimal kind of strategy that you're looking at. 7 laps on the mediums, 3 laps on the hard tyres if you are starting on the mediums. Now, you can do all 9 laps on the medium tyres if you want. In terms of longevity, they will keep performing. Lap 8 a 57.6, lap 9 a 58.2, so obviously going to just park the car up. 9 laps would be all you would be doing on the medium tyres, because obviously you have to do at least 1 lap on the hard tyres. And you can see there is still quite a bit of white left there on the tyre telemetry, so even a 10th lap would be possible if we really wanted to. But yeah, 9 laps definitely possible for those people who are good on tyres. And looking at laps 8 and 9, not that much of a drop off compared to what we're doing on the hard tyres, albeit definitely slower than what we could do on the hard tyres, but certainly not dramatically so. So we've looked at the tyres, let's look at the pit stop that you're going to have to make in this one. Now do be careful coming into the pit lane. If you come into the pit lane too hot, you can understeer into the barrier on the left hand side and get a big red face. Assuming you've managed to negotiate the pit lane, and also actually on the entry of the pit lane, do be careful not to cross the white line. You have to commit coming out the chicane over to the right hand side of the track when you're going to make that pit stop. If you leave it too late, you will cross over the white line and pick up a 3-second penalty. But coming into the box now, let's get these tyres changed. It's going to be 4.8 seconds stationary, 19.5 seconds overall loss. Fuel is no issue whatsoever. White line, very important to remember as you're coming out of the pits. You're looking to brake around about 60 metres to make sure you can get into the apex, and do have a wee quick glance behind you as you leave the pits as well, just to make sure you have no other cars around you, or if you do have other cars around you, to give them the due care and space that they deserve. But yeah, 19.5 seconds is going to be your pit loss. Fuel no issue, as I said. Moving on to some alternative cars then. Now, I did say earlier on in the video that I don't think the GTR is going to be the fastest car around here. For me, the fastest car around here is possibly going to be this Porsche 911 RSR. Now, I haven't driven the Porsche since Dragon Trail Gardens several weeks ago, and I immediately managed to go quicker than I did in the GTR. However, the perils of the Porsche is what you're seeing there. It wears the rear tyres out quicker than the fronts, which can make it sketchy as you get a little bit later into the stint. So I do think it's a quick car, but I think maybe not quite as comfortable as the GTR. Next up is the Toyota FT1 VGT. Now, this car always had a fearsome reputation around this track in GT Sport. It's also quite handy around the track in GT7 as well. 156.1 is not a bad lap time at all, just a couple of attempts slower than the Porsche, and it looks pretty good on those tyres as well. So maybe not the fastest car, the Toyota FT1, but definitely looks like it's got some potential to hang in there if you can get or enjoy the way that that car happens to drive. And next up I wanted to check the Subaru BRZ. Given that tyre wear is quite a theme in this one, you know, let's take the car that's the best on tyre wear. Does it have an advantage of being able to do 9 really quick laps on the medium tyres? Well, I suspect the tyre wear will be okay on it, but for me, it was just really slow. 156.8, I was struggling to get into the 56s. Ignore the optimal there, that's from me testing the FT1 and the Porsche and the BRZ all within the same session. So yeah, I don't think the BRZ is the car, but given the sort of limited testing that I was able to do, I am hopeful that quite a number of cars should be competitive around here. I don't think there's going to be one car that's going to blow everything else away, which is always good to see. So with all that done, let's move on to our strategy options. First up, we have the optimal strategy. So this is the strategies that are going to give you the best overall tyre performance. So 6-7 laps on the mediums and 3-4 laps on the hard tyres, or more likely, the far more people are going to do it this way. They're going to do 3 or 4 laps on the hard tyres and 6-7 laps on the mediums. As I said, gives you the best kind of overall performance in terms of the tyres, but you will be vulnerable to anybody who is employing an undercut strategy. So the undercut strategies are going to be pretty much limited to starting on the hard tyres, 1-2 laps on the hard tyres, 8 or 9 laps on the mediums. Will give you a decent undercut over MD who's doing the optimal strategy, but you are going to be vulnerable in the last 2 laps to optimal runners as your tyres start to go off. But definitely a lot of potential to gain track position and then force the other cars to go for that overtake. And lastly, we have the overcut strategy. Only a strategy that's going to work in specific circumstances. If you've started on the medium tyres, rather than kind of pitting at the end of lap 6 or 7, you're possibly in a race where you kind of battle with a lot of cars around you, so you stay out in the medium tyres, kind of stay out to the last possible moment, let the other cars continue with the fighting, hopefully they hold each other up, and you just come in at the pits, do 1 or 2 laps on the hard tyres at the end, and hopefully you have managed to kind of stay out of trouble and come out in a good position. But the overcut strategy only really does tend to work in specific situations. Far more people are going to go for an undercut or the optimal strategy, most likely the 3-4 laps on the hard and then finished off with the 6-7 laps on the mediums. But that's us pretty much wrapped up in terms of the strategy. Definitely some options out there to try and do something different, to try and make your race work, try and get out of the traffic and maybe get an undercut there, and you know, rather than just kind of following the train the entire race, which is always nice to see. It's always what we're looking for on the strategy front when it comes to these daily race Cs. But yeah, with that all done, let's move on to the last portion of the video. It's going to be the lap guide. We're in the Porsche 911 RSR, come down to turn 1. You're looking for the 100 metre board, just before the 100 metre board. Get the car into the apex there. Do be careful on the Porsche, get it into that apex just too much, because the car will try to rotate around on you. But yeah, obviously the tighter you get into that apex, get the car rotated and then straighten out on the power, the more time you're going to save. Coming through the tricky stadium section here, it's really just about getting the car slowed down on the right line through this part of the track. You start, if you miss one corner, you do tend to start going offline for the rest of them. Kind of just before the last cone is your braking point into this fast left-hander. Get the car over to the left-hand side. An important corner this one, because it does lead onto a straight, so you want to get the car into the apex nice and early, get it straightened and get on the power all the way down the hill here to the Dunlop hairpin. Grey curb on the left hand side, just at the start of that is your braking reference. You can either kind of take a tight line or you can sort of V the corner off, but the important thing is to get on that power as early as possible. Coming up through the Schumacher S, it will have to give a slight lift just to get it through there. Make sure you don't get a penalty by running wide. And then just under the gantry, you're looking for the 100 metre board. Just before the 100 metre board, get the car in, try and get your left hand tyre onto the curb on the inside. It'll help the car come round, get it over to the left hand side for this sweeping right hander. And again, it's just all about corner exit. It's why the Porsche is so strong around this combination, I think. Lots of corners where it can kind of use that formidable traction. Coming up to the chicane, probably the most important but most annoying corner on the track, just before the 100 metre board. Hammer that curb as well. It's all about taking the risk of getting the penalty. The more you risk, the quicker your lap's going to be. But do be careful in the Porsche, and also the GTR, to be honest with you. The second part of the curb, the chicane, can be a little bit sketchy on the curbs, that is for sure. But coming in to complete a lap there, a 155.9, it's definitely not the fastest lap you're going to see in the world. There'll be other lap guides out there who'll be into things in much more intricate detail as the week unfolds. But yeah, I think it's a good race. I think there's strategy options in there. I'm hopeful there'll be some car variety as well. We'll definitely be doing this one a number of times over the course of the week. Do join me for them if you can. We'll use some different cars, we'll try some different strategies, we'll just make the most of what PD is offering us up as the dailies. But yeah, I think it's a good one. I think there should be some good fun in there, some potential for some good racing. Should be pretty busy as well. It's a sort of tracking car combination that brings out the player base as well. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, folks. Hopefully the video's been useful in some way, shape or form. If it has, please hit that like button, please hit that subscribe button. Once again, thank you very much for watching. Shall catch you on the next one. Goodbye now.